By the time the Genestealer cults launch their assault, they are already 10 steps ahead of their enemies. The opposing forces find their supply lines severed and their communications drowned out by alien broadcasts that scramble their minds with disturbing messages. Skilled assassins eliminate enemy commanders who have yet to fully succumb to the cult's influence. From beneath the chaos, insurrectionary groups comprising xeno-tainted fanatics, followers of renowned freedom fighters, and psychic masterminds ignite uprisings designed to overwhelm their panicked foes. These rebellions may have been provoked prematurely, like a hive of furious insects disturbed by unwitting invaders from the stars. Perhaps the moment of reckoning has arrived, and the faithful rise to their destined path toward triumph. Regardless of what ignited the upheaval, the outcome remains constant, a world suddenly and violently besieged by an invisible foe lurking within. As the insurrection gains momentum, a long-hidden parasitic master emerges from the shadows. The secret patriarch, concealed for ages, now reveals itself as the nightmare Vis, casting its shadow over the war-ravaged planet. The entire conflict becomes a hunting ground for this alien entity and its ravenous brood, driving them toward domination or their own eventual downfall. The entity leads the hive's forces toward victory, yet this victory is tarred with dread as it signals the onset of their grim destiny. In the wider galactic stage, the hive fleets of the Tyranids march relentlessly into new territories year after year. Their direct assaults on planets are devastating and terror-inducing, yet they also employ far more insidious methods to weaken and consume their prey. One of their most effective tools is the Genestealer cult, a cunning and deeply disturbing strategy. Imperial authorities consider the Genestealer cults a relatively recent threat. Their presence within the Empire was not recognized until the infamous chaplain Cassius and his Death Watch unit detected their influence on the mining world of Gosar Quintus. Still, how far this insidious threat extends remains a mystery. The Imperium, despite its vastness and power, is spread thin across the endless darkness of space. Many worlds suffer under brutal regimes, often justified by questionable necessity, and many populations endure oppression under overseers' rule. Rebellions, secessionist movements, internal divisions within the imperial faith, petty warlords, organized crime, and clandestine chaos cults are common, further obscuring the rise of this threat. It was through patience, cunning, and the inherent resilience of the Brutkin, an ancient secretive faction, that the Imperium finally began noticing the threat of the Genestealer cults. On many worlds, their danger remained unnoticed, an obscure and lurking menace. This lack of awareness only made them more dangerous, for the first signs of infestation might be subtle. Unexplained disappearances, thefts of vital equipment, or sinister graffiti hailing the Star Children, three-armed gunmen, or worm-formed figures. Occasionally, a cult operative might be caught trying to infiltrate high society, revealing the creeping influence of the parasite in the shadows of Imperial civilization. The cults they serve are as subtle and patient as the origins from which they arise, often resembling the insidious nature of their progenitors. Their presence may be detected only through strange improvements or an unusually low level of disturbance in the local area. For example, productivity in certain industries can increase noticeably owing to the relentless efforts of uncomplaining workers, while local crime rates might unexpectedly decline as the cult consolidates control over territories and works to avoid detection before they are ready to strike. When vigilant observers, such as members of the Ordo Xenos or Death Watch, notice these subtle signs, decisive intervention can avalanche into open conflict, potentially eradicating the cult entirely. Conversely, if the world they infest faces external threats like invasions, the Genestealer cult may hasten its plans, emerging like an insect colony swarming to defend its nest against intruders. More often, however, the rulers of these manipulated worlds remain blissfully unaware of the growing threat lurking behind their walls and beneath their feet. They are only caught off guard when the cult finally reveals itself during a final act of defiance called the Ascension, unleashing a brutal uprising. This nightmare scenario begins with a swift and widespread insurrection, demonstrating how deeply the corruption has infiltrated society, from the lowest levels of laborers, miners, and factory workers to the enforcers of imperial authority. These groups, under the influence of the cult, organize themselves into fanatical armies, armed and driven by a conviction that they are rebelling against imperial oppression, believing that the star children of the cult might bless their world with divine presence and elevate all to a state of spiritual unity. The infected hordes display their alien corruption openly, proudly bearing symbols and banners in broad daylight, their stigma of mutation unmistakable. From the wilderness and wasteland, nomadic prospectors and tribes, long camouflaging their true nature behind dust and goggles, now rally to assist the uprising. Massive swarms of monstrous, more alien than human creatures, wielding industrial tools as if they were primitive weapons, lead the charge. These rebels are driven by charismatic leaders, hybrid war heroes, and powerful psychers, who act swiftly to seize supply lines, capture key facilities, and sabotage vital infrastructure like generators and spaceports. Their rapid advances reveal meticulous planning, supported by the cult's masterful onslaught. Imperial forces, local law enforcers, planetary militias, and even the Astra Militarum mobilize to crush this rebellion. Yet, chaos often hampers these efforts, as internal strife and infighting weaken defenses. In some cases, even the highest-ranking Imperial agents betray their oaths, revealing themselves as cult operatives, sowing disinformation and chaos from within. The infiltration goes deep, threatening to unravel the entire galaxy's fragile stability when the cult's true nature is finally uncovered. As the uprising gains strength, remnants of loyal defenders become fewer, and isolated pockets of Imperial control are swiftly overwhelmed by the rising tide of chaos. Citizens, even those unindoctrinated, can find themselves caught up in the fervor of rejecting the Imperial authority, leading to the rapid fall of population centers. Fortress defenses are seized one after another, with their weapon emplacements often diverted to attack remaining loyal forces or targeted at orbiting ships and shield platforms. As this nightmare reaches its peak, even the highest leaders, including the Patriarch, abandon their thrones amidst bubbling pools of genetic material, emerging from shadows to confront the parasitic demigod leading the rebellion. This monstrous entity orchestrates the final offensive against those still resisting, often accompanied by other Tyranid creatures joining the assault. A crushing psychic presence spreads across the planet, sowing fear and despair as it beckons an approaching hive fleet. The skies darken with the descent of invasion spores and colossal tentacles as the alien swarms descend en masse. To the faithful, these creatures appear as celestial beings, divine entities meant to elevate their devotees through unity. Yet only when the Patriarch itself succumbs to the hive mind's control and forsakes its brood do the cultists realize the horrific truth about their so-called triumph. By then, it is too late, both for them and the remaining defenders of the world. If the Genestealer cults are not truly revolutionary liberators, but instead serve the interests of the Tyranid fleets, they fulfill two key roles for the High Fleets. The first involves destabilizing regions of Imperial space, opening pathways for future invasions. Despite humanity's hardships, the Imperium maintains vast territories and formidable armies, capable of resisting the High Fleet's relentless advance. Every planet hollowed out by a Genestealer cult represents another weak point, eroding Imperial strength from within. When human worlds mysteriously fall silent and lose contact with sector command, they become lost assets and potential threats, necessitating costly investigations. Thus, Genestealer cults drain vital resources from Imperial sectors, turning systems into weak, parasite-infested regions. The parasites weaken their hosts, making defense increasingly difficult when invasion finally arrives. Even more insidiously, the cults emit a psychic signal, often unnoticed by most believers, which acts as a beacon for the hive mind. As the cult's collective consciousness grows stronger, this signal becomes a shimmering, discordant chorus that the Tyranid hive ships home in on. It often signals entire systems fallen under the cult's influence or vast regions in collapse. indicating the presence of enormous amounts of Tyranid activity nearby. By subtly amplifying this psychic beacon, the cults inadvertently guide the hive fleets closer to vulnerable worlds, hastening the day when invasion becomes inevitable. In their relentless quest for forbidden power, sinister alien entities often present their offerings as sacrifices to unknown cosmic deities. These deities view their followers not as devotees, but as mere sustenance, raw materials to fuel new invasions. When a Genestealer manages to breach the defenses of an Imperial world, it quickly retreats into the deepest shadows, be it the labyrinthine underbelly of a hive city, the dark recesses of a sprawling forge complex, or remote cavernous regions of desolate worlds. There, the curse of the Genestealer begins its insidious spread. The initial act involves the alien infecting unwitting victims, using hypnotic control to enslave their minds. These first targets inherit Tyranid genetic traits via the Genestealer's intermediary, the Opistor, which exerts total dominance over their body and spirit. Viewing the alien as a messianic savior, the victims are drawn further into the cult, abducted to be implanted in a ritual known as the Genestealer's Kiss. Over time, successive generations emerge within this dark cult. The first hybrids are monstrous, alien in form with oversized heads, protruding limbs, and multiple extra appendages. These abominable figures breed, giving rise to a second generation of hybrids that are still grotesque but slightly more developed. These creatures now stand hunched, with beast-like features and often an additional limb, yet they can still communicate in basic Gothic and grasp fundamental Imperial technologies using dexterous digits. Further generations become increasingly humanoid. The third generation hybrids walk upright, their alien traits diminishing but not entirely gone. Vestigial limbs remain concealed beneath their features. It is with the fourth generation that the line blurs so closely to human that they can move unnoticed within Imperial society. These near-human hybrids are hairless and may appear peculiar to observant individuals, but their true nature is well concealed. During these latter stages, specialized agents within the brood are born, psychic magi, noble primuses, and scientifically oriented individuals who work tirelessly to strengthen and coordinate the cult's intricate hierarchy. Offspring of the fourth generation are not merely mutated humans, but pure strains of Genestealers. Despite their monstrous origins, their parents view these offspring as divine blessings, willing to die defending them at a moment's notice. Thus, the cycle perpetuates, amplifying the cult's influence with each iteration. Despite its growth, the cult's hierarchy is typically dominated by a single PTI atriarch connected through a synaptic link called the brood mind. Disrupting or killing this patriarch can shatter the entire link, plunging the cult into chaos. Yet, even in chaos, if the taint is not swiftly eradicated, a new Genestealer, usually a brood of the previous patriarch, will assume control, re-establishing the brood mind. This ongoing cycle illustrates the terrifying resilience of the Genestealer menace as their insidious influence spreads, adapting through generations and infiltrating Imperial society from the shadows. Deathwatch has identified numerous distinct Genestealer cults, each with their own characteristics. Among these are the Inner Worm, the cult of the Four-Armed Emperor, and the Pauper Princes, each displaying unique coloration, worm glyphs, and cultural traits that distinguish one from another. These differences include specialized customs and strategic preferences, allowing their members to be recognized by unique symbols or hidden tattoos, often reflecting local traditions or societal segments. For example, certain industries or regions may favor specific cult colors or conceal worm forms in secret locations on their bodies. Some sects develop extensive infrastructures with leaders and agents, yet it remains rare for a single world to host multiple patriarchs from the same cult lineage. Cults originating from the same parent organization often exhibit slight cultural or doctrinal variations, influenced by local customs or uniforms. Such distinctions can lead to different societal roles. One sect might dominate in mining operations with large numbers of hybrid miners, while another could consist of prospecting clans or military-embedded brood brothers. Despite these differences, allegiance to the cult and the bonds of the brood mind always remain paramount. The pattern of societal infiltration generally follows a familiar course. Most cults initially embed themselves among the lower strata of Imperial society, miners, forge workers, laborers, whose disappearances usually go unnoticed or are dismissed by overwhelmed enforcers, who see attrition among workers as a natural aspect of their duties. As the cult's influence grows, it begins to extend its reach into more prominent institutions, subtly infiltrating fortified compounds and security agencies such as the Adeptus Arbites, safeguarding its operations from suspicion. This calculated infiltration maintains the illusion of normalcy for local authorities, while the cult consolidates its strength. Simultaneously, the cult enlists local gangs, militias, and devout adherents of the Imperial faith, using them to expand its influence and accelerate recruitment. These groups serve as foundational pillars, facilitating the cult's expansion into higher societal levels. Eventually, a gene sect may amass enough power to assume dominant societal control, all while remaining discreet and employing this growing network to foster an environment conducive to unchallenged growth. It is typically during these later stages that cults risk infiltrating military units or naval formations, which are better protected against corruption but also pose significant dangers if compromised. The infiltration of cults often goes unnoticed, yet disrupting local military units remains essential for the uprising to succeed. To bolster their ranks, countless ordinary citizens are conscripted into the Imperial Guard or forcibly recruited to serve on naval vessels. Among the vast human population, the presence of tolerated abhumans and minor mutants frequently provides the sneaky entry points for the Genestealer infection. If these infections remain hidden, a Genestealer cult can continue to grow secretly for decades, even centuries. As they expand, their leaders, known as patriarchs, can smuggle Genestealer broods or entire sects off-world, establishing smaller infection spheres, called splinter cults, on nearby moons, space stations, or planets. Entire stellar systems might become corrupted in this manner, making eventual resistance extremely difficult as the day of Ascension draws near and the cult aims for total domination. While concealed within often peaceful-seeming communities, these cults harbor no signs of internal chaos or crime, yet beneath the surface they are fully prepared for war. Their core, the Patriarch, operates from a hidden throne room, commanding its brood through a collective mind, with key agents acting at its behest. The Patriarch rules over its followers like an all-powerful sovereign, maintaining control as they strive daily to grow their numbers, resources, and influence. When the cult decides the time is right, it unleashes a psychic command to its billions of followers, signaling the commencement of the Ascension. In preparation, each gene sect forms military units called claws, which are assembled and disbanded as needed under the direction of the Patriarch and its war leaders. Even a single claw possesses the force necessary to stage quick assaults against enemies, hunt potential informants, or eliminate rival leaders threatening its secrecy. When the uprising erupts fully, the once hidden cult reveals itself as a formidable army, with many clandestine shrines transforming into proud, visible symbols of rebellion. Beings too alien to resemble humans are finally unleashed, their mutations serving as potent weapons in the conflict. The cult's plans proceed with ruthless precision, launching sabotage, ambushes, and surprise attacks. Infiltrators turn against former allies within gangs, militias, and military garrisons, sowing chaos through mass betrayal. This psychological warfare deeply unsettles loyalist forces, whose confusion and denial hinder their response. As trust erodes and resistance struggles to organize, the cult's relentless onslaught aims to secure ultimate victory before anyone recognizes its true nature. The Genestealer cults face relentless pressure, even as they attempt to negotiate with former allies turned insurgents or to extract hollow assurances from their leaders. Instead of halting to gather intelligence or delay, they prioritize immediate resistance, recognizing that surprise is their most vital advantage. Unlike their enemies, who often rely on advanced equipment such as super-heavy tanks and sophisticated combat aircraft, the cult's access to such technology is typically limited. Most of their forces resemble guerrilla units, paramilitary bands that compensate for the lack of heavy hardware through fervor, numbers, and strategic cunning. cult forces relentlessly seek to seize the initiative at the very outset of a conflict, aiming to unbalance their enemies from the start. They avoid direct confrontation with well-armed foes initially, instead choosing to maneuver around them through hidden crawlways and abandoned tunnels before striking unexpectedly. Key battlegrounds are riddled with traps, while skilled operatives infiltrate communication networks to spread disinformation, erode morale, and sow confusion among enemy ranks. They even target influential personnel, turning them into unwitting agents of the cult's leadership through psychological manipulation. When the cult does deploy heavier assets such as core fighters or warbands, often distinguished as brood brothers, it is usually against the most fortified or critical objectives. These could be the strongholds of loyalist defenders, fortified palaces of high-ranking officials, or sanctums of imperial authorities. Such formidable targets serve as strategic points to weaken the enemy's core infrastructure. Occasionally, the cult reserves its more potent forces to respond to enemy attempts at repression or to counter elite imperial response units, such as specialized security forces or alien hunters. If the threat emerges swiftly from outside worlds, it is often the brood brothers who bear the initial burden of combat, fighting in a manner akin to conventional armies. They aim to slow the advance of invading forces, sometimes engaging in engagements that resemble traditional warfare, even fighting alongside reluctant imperial allies. Throughout these battles, the cult's ultimate objective remains clear: to rally the full strength of their followers for a decisive counterattack. From the moment their uprising ignites, every member of the cult is committed to the war effort, willing to risk their lives in service of the Patriarch's vision. The cult's belief system offers the promise of divine reward, fueling their total commitment to overthrow the existing order. Insurgent raids and sneak attacks spread across entire planets day after day, with the cult striking from the shadows like a multi-tentacled beast. The fighting continues until the last of the faithful have either fallen in martyrdom or succeeded in claiming their world in the name of the Star Children. Despite their outward human semblance, many among the Genestealer cults conceal a sinister alien malevolence bubbling beneath. Their true nature remains hidden, revealing only glimpses of the monstrous and uncanny that lie beneath their superficial guise. This duality between outward normalcy and inner alien darkness defines their relentless covert war against the forces seeking to extinguish them. Rising tensions reveal that third and fourth generation hybrids gradually expose their true loyalties as they turn against those who once trusted them. These hybrids, especially from the later generations, are the most numerous and widespread members of the gene sex, a fact that benefits the ruling patriarch, for they can blend seamlessly into the human masses. It is these hybrids who incorporate themselves into the bustling labor forces, mining teams in vast macro mines, workers at forge temples, or farmers tending crops and operating nutravats. Some infiltrate the wilderness as prospectors or disguise themselves within the ranks of the Astro Militarum. Ironically, until their allegiance is revealed, their disciplined nature renders them invaluable to the Imperium. They are diligent, hard-working individuals who appear loyal citizens, eager to avoid trouble in pleasing their masters. However, this obscures the shock when the hybrids turn traitor during the Great Insurgency. When the populace relies on their supposedly trustworthy members for protection, they are horrified to discover that these allies are fighting alongside, rather than against, the threats emerging from the depths. These new hybrids, born from the brood cycles of the third and fourth generations, maintain an unwavering link to the Patriarch. They dedicate years to their cause, willingly engaging in perilous assaults or fighting in hostile environments until exhaustion claims them, all without complaint. As the cold season approaches, these hybrids infiltrate key positions as malicious fighters, miners, and laborers, stockpiling weapons and war gear for future use. When the time is right, they reveal their true purpose. During the bloody uprising, these hybrids demonstrate their capabilities as formidable combatants. They gather in large broods, with their bulkier third-generation kin wielding the heaviest armaments. Naturally, the most capable among them assume command, raising their iconography high as they surge forward to overwhelm their stunned enemies. Meanwhile, the 4th-generation hybrids known as Adeline jackals serve their gene sect as outsiders. Operating across different terrains, tunnels, dust plains, they hunt and travel in tightly coordinated packs linked by mental bonds that enable seamless teamwork. Behind their facade of legitimacy, Adeline-class vehicles are everyday sights on many Imperial worlds, rugged, simple transports used by mining operations, prospecting ventures, nomadic herders, and scouts. These vehicles allow them to gather intelligence on trade routes, military positions, resources, and potential recruitment grounds, with the Jackal allies always at the forefront of such efforts. Among the most capable natural leaders, possessing the innate ability to traverse vast distances under extreme conditions, be it relentless sunlight or freezing cold, are those who gather crucial intelligence for their faction's strategic dealings. Leaders like Adele and Jackal serve as rapid reconnaissance units, performing swift raids to eliminate vulnerable or isolated enemy groups while harassing their flanks. Their support often comes from wolf quads, light prospecting vehicles equipped with mining lasers and incinerators, easily repurposed into formidable weapons in war. The longer an Astra Militarum regiment remains stationed on a prey planet, the greater the risk of infiltration by the enemy's subversive sects. These sects target soldiers at all levels, whether infantry or tank crews, attempting to corrupt them from within. Individuals infected in this way are known as brood brothers. Such infiltrators are often high-value targets, and their destruction can cause significant damage, occasionally with dramatic effects. One notorious example is the devastation inflicted after the Ray Chan of the 57th Death Strike missile battery unleashed a vortex warhead, a story frequently recounted among the Death Watch. Similarly, reports from Holy Prime reveal that the cult uprising there operates a trio of super-heavy Stormlord tanks, causing extensive destruction. Though targeted theft of such powerful assets is rare, due to the high risk of detection, these acts can have catastrophic consequences when successful. Typically, brood brothers begin by infiltrating the lower ranks of a regiment, replacing loyal soldiers one by one until entire units answer not to their legitimate officers but to the cult's patriarch. This deception grants the infiltrators access to reliable military-grade weaponry, hardened communication systems, personal heavy weapons, and sometimes even the most formidable war engines that the Astra Militarum commands. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this infiltration is that, even as the cult gradually empties the ranks from within, the Imperium continues to train its soldiers in the very tactics and rituals that will soon be turned against them. The Brood Brothers aim to gain positions of trust. If everything goes according to plan, loyal comrades remain unaware of the threat until it strikes, often with devastating force. The cult creates chimeric beings, aberrations combining Tyranid and human genes, resulting in grotesque insectoid monstrosities that are terrifying both in appearance and capability. These hybrid creatures serve as shock troops, endowed with xeno-enhanced speed and strength, making them as perilous to confront as they are repulsive to behold. The more malformed servitors of the Patriarch emerge during the cult's gestation period, remaining hidden to avoid detection. If discovered, they are likely to be hunted as mutants or flagged by vigilant Imperial agents, as no cult leader would risk a purge that could expose their entire operation. Deep within the shadowed realms of their prey world, these monstrous brood creatures dwell, lurking patiently until the moment of their uprising. They revere their patriarch and the Star Children, often chanting and hissing in inhuman tones that echo through damp caverns and around alien idols fashioned from iron, flesh, and bone. As tireless sentinels, some guard the inner sanctums of their cult with unwavering vigilance, while others stealthily navigate the gloom on covert missions of sabotage and infiltration. Many spend endless hours beneath the surface in treacherous tunnels, their minds brooding like ancient legends of horror, eagerly awaiting the day they can claim the surface worlds from those who walk in illumination. When that moment arrives, everything changes dramatically. Loosed upon the world after being confined for so long, these creatures unleash their cruelty and fervent loyalty to the Patriarch, surging into the forefront of brutal battles. Strange mutations, once thought to make them liabilities, now render them among the most fearsome warriors of their genetic sect. The first and second generations of their cycle are too alien to seamlessly integrate into human society. These hybrids serve as their cult's staunchest followers, loyal sons and daughters, and vigilant guardians of its lair. Despite their entirely alien minds, they carry echoes of their human origins, providing them with a natural familiarity with technological systems and languages, which enhances their ability to conduct stealthy reconnaissance and assassination missions. Equipped with formidable strength, these hybrids wield enormous industrial tools and armaments into combat, using oversized weapons to carve through enemy armor and battalions. They are armed with hand flamers, auto pistols, destructive charges, and the vicious talons and fangs inherited from their unnatural lineage, turning them into deadly instruments of destruction. Many cultists see the emergence of hybrid metamorphs among their ranks as a fortunate sign. These mutants develop from first or second generation specimens, with arms transforming into claws capable of crushing armored foes or whipping barbed tentacles from their bodies. Some evolve gruesome appendages like tentacles or throat sacs that produce corrosive bioacid, further augmenting their destructive potential. Offering sacrifices to these metamorphs is a common practice among cultists, believing that such acts curry favor with the Star Children. These mutations often occur when a nearby Tyranid splinter fleet approaches, sensing a Genestealer cult's presence. The hive mind responds by sending a synaptic imperative, activating dormant genetic codes within the cult's members. This process ensures that when the Tyranid swarm finally advances, the cult is already equipped with a host of war beasts ready to aid in the conquest of their prey world. Occasionally, these metamorphs also emerge spontaneously, further contributing to the cult's growing arsenal of terror. When the brood faces severe trauma, be it the emergence of warp storms, the threat of large-scale discoveries, or an alien invasion, it often triggers premature mutations in its creatures. These mutations serve to bolster their defenses and support the patriarch. Flaws within the brood's development cycle can lead to aberrant forms, monstrous entities that deviate from normal growth. Scholars specializing in alien biology have suggested various causes: injections with faulty ovipositors, failed bioexperiments, the influence of warp phenomena, or even the residual human spirit resisting its alien containment at the expense of its host body. Regardless of their origins, these simple-minded yet formidable monsters are often compelled to serve, pursuing and obeying the commands of biophages without question. Some aberrants even become subjects of dark genetic experiments manipulated by reckless gene scientists and cultists. The Genestealer cults actively exploit these tireless aberrants, which possess extraordinary strength and resilience. These creatures are employed to carve new tunnels, establish connections between hideouts, uncover hidden caches of resources or weaponry, and excavate under Imperial fortresses, sometimes frozen in dangerous sappers' work using explosive charges. The most cunning of these monsters are sent on targeted, brutal missions, lurking from sewer systems at night to swiftly eliminate obstacles to the cult's plans. As unrest grows, however, these subtle tactics give way to more direct violence. Aberrants make formidable shock troops and shields, often equated with falling heavy ordnance in their destructive capacity. To enhance their battlefield usefulness, each chosen aberrant receives further modifications during the brood cycle. From the biotech pools, a creature called a mindworm, a small, imp-like organism infused with the patriarch's consciousness, is spawned. It seeks out its host to inject genetic material, injecting genetic structures into the aberrant, using its tiny ovipositor over long, painful nights. Mutations and rapid growth cause these monsters to become grotesquely larger and more powerful, with regenerative abilities that allow them to heal quickly from injuries. These creatures are so simple-minded that they can be subdued using discarded toys or carcasses, yet in war they transform into relentless engines of destruction. Driven by their skittering mindworms, aberrants wade into battle, wielding massive hammers with devastating swings, rending flesh and healing almost instantly. The cult's focus on simply gathering followers and resources is insufficient for victory. Over generations, the brood cycle produces specialized bioforms whose instinctive skills and unique abilities often render them more valuable than vast armies or stolen machinery. Among these, the Primus, a third-generation hybrid, emerges when a Tyranid splinter fleet approaches or when the cult's needs demand it. These advanced aberrants play crucial roles in their ongoing campaigns, embodying the lethal power and adaptability of the brood. The unwavering leadership of the Primus exemplifies strength, resilience, and commanding presence, inspiring their kin with instinctive authority capable of rallying even the most desperate members of the cult. It is no surprise that many primates are celebrated within their gene sect as revolutionary heroes, believed to be blessed by their patriarch before the day of Ascension. Before the imminent uprising, the Primus's role is to meticulously plan the assault, devising strategies for a decisive blow. They oversee the seizure of transportation vessels and void ships, enabling splintered cult groups to spread across the star system. As the critical moment approaches, the Primus assumes command of military operations, transforming into the avatar and the quintessential fist of their patriarch, a legendary war leader whose followers are willing to follow into almost certain peril, driven by unwavering loyalty. In the initial phases of the revolt, the Primus leads daring strikes deep behind enemy lines, directing resource extraction and daring raids, even personally commanding operations as the conflict intensifies. Once the uprising erupts fully, they oversee the larger, overwhelming assault against the targeted world. During battle, the Primus is a formidable force, wielding toxins derived from their own circulatory fluids, injected into enemies through hissing needlers and vicious injector claws. Those who survive such assaults often fall before the psychically charged blades forged from the essence of their patriarch's throne, capable of draining vital energy and reducing foes to helpless husks. The Primus's weaponry, known as the wheels, are said to be crafted from the very material of the patriarch's throne. These terrifying devices drain life force, leaving opponents inert and drained. Meanwhile, the Nexos, a bioform emerging from the brood cycle as the cult's numbers grow, serves an essential role in coordinating the patriarch's vast followers. Despite their frail appearance, with veins pulsing beneath translucent skin and bruised flesh around jaundiced thighs, their physical state is a testament to the incredible mental burdens they bear, rather than weakness. This capacity stems from their extraordinary psychic gifts, which make them invaluable strategists and commanders within the cult. By touching a being infected with the Genestealer taint, the Nexos can absorb a complete mental and sensory record of every moment of that individual's life. This process allows them to accumulate millions of such impressions, building a detailed three-dimensional mental map of their territory, the battlefield, and the enemy's capabilities. Equipped with this biological supercomputer, the Nexos functions as the cultive's strategic nervous system, guiding entire squads of warriors in complex maneuvers, often coordinating with other units engaged in cyber warfare. Their combined efforts enable feats of tactical mastery that surpass the organizational reach of entire Imperial command posts, making them indispensable to the cult's campaigns. The influence of the Corf manifests vividly in the folk tales of the working classes, where it stands as a rebellious symbol defying Imperial authority. Its presence is evident in graffiti depicting a three-armed gunfighter draped in a billowing cloak, and in the aftermath of violent encounters, where the trails of bullet-riddled figures lie strewn in its wake. To the oppressed, the Corf embodies heroism and revolution. To those in power, it appears as a dangerous anomaly threatening the stability of the Emperor's domain. Yet beneath these surface-level interpretations lies a more cynical reality. The Corf is a product of advanced bioengineering, crafted as a third-generation CT hybrid from genetically modified local strains. Designed to manipulate the human mind, it skillfully exploits aspirations of rebellion, animosity, and the thrill of adventure shared by criminals and disillusioned youth alike. Possessing heightened reflexes, exceptional sensory perception, and unnaturally agile and composed movements, the Corf outmatches conventional justice, operating instinctively and guided by the will of its creator. As a solitary force of defiance, it strikes where victory would bring the greatest recognition, becoming a symbol of liberation and hope. Its lethal efficiency, exemplified by its signature auto-stubber weapon that silences enemies and destroys heavily armored targets, turns it into a legendary figure. Over time, the legend of the three-armed gunslinger grows so prominent that many emulate or seek to achieve similar feats, fueling chaos within the oppressed worlds. Dissatisfied factions from various backgrounds find themselves unwittingly drawn into this cult of rebellion, which is rooted in the psychic influence exerted by inductees known as magi. These magi appear outwardly human, exuding charisma and intelligence that conceal their true allegiance. They serve as agents of their patriarch's will. Infused with alien influence and wholly committed to the cult's expansion, they operate subtly from the shadows, infiltrating the highest echelons of society. During the cult's rise, each gene-sex magi skillfully use persuasive speech and psychic manipulation, carefully avoiding catastrophe while penetrating elite circles like the aristocracy, ecclesiastical authorities, and planetary governments. A single encounter with a magus can convert a staunch opponent into a loyal supporter or plunge them into madness if they resist. On more populated worlds with multiple gene sects, magi often compete for their patriarch's favor with rival ambitions, mirroring sibling rivalry. However, once the day of the cult's ascension arrives, notions of personal rivalry fade, replaced completely by unwavering obedience to the cause. The patriarch's followers believe that the magus, once a vessel of their leader's divine will, has become a pivotal figure within the forces of the cult. This powerful psyker is capable of inciting frenetic violence among his brothers and sisters, subtly bending enemies like marionettes by forcing them into destructive chaos. His commands resonate as echoes of the patriarch's own sacred voice, echoing through the towering spires and hive industries of the hive city. These commanding utterances have the power to sway millions, compelling them to arms. The Clovis, essential agents of misinformation, leverage their advanced communication interceptors to infiltrate enemy transmissions. They extract crucial intelligence and replace it with foreboding broadcasts infused with psychological resonance, designed to sow panic and confusion among hostiles. During the cult's secret growth, each Clovis played a vital role in spreading fear and mistrust, corrupting communication channels, distorting visual feeds, and eroding the confidence of the population in the ruling authorities. They infiltrate Imperial society by distributing corrupted texts, such as distorted psalms, hymns, and religious primers, laden with insidious double meanings, subtly influencing public perception. These materials have even been used to taint the morale of the Imperial military personnel by distributing doctored copies of their foundational manuals. When conflict erupts, a Clovis's connection to the cult's psychic source makes them a crucial frontline asset. Unlike a magus who wields precise power, a Clovis transmits the nullifying resonance of the shadow in the warp, an overwhelming psychic static often associated with the emergence of Tyranid hive fleets. Every hiss from their scrambler array taps into the collective consciousness of billions of indoctrinated organisms, a chorus of abnormal minds calling out in supplication to the hive mind. In close proximity, this psychic interference causes a severe overload, resulting in a destructive feedback loop that can incapacitate enemies by frying their brains. From this understanding, the cult has developed the Ritus Saboteur, an advanced hybrid of knowledge and explosives and destructive engineering. These specialists craft devices, traps, and lightweight battlefield charges even from the most unlikely materials. Driven by an instinctive compulsion, they experiment tirelessly, distilling volatile chemicals, scavenging scrap from ruins, or repurposing remnants from abandoned workshops. Their aim is to develop an ever-expanding arsenal of versatile explosives. Some are immensely powerful, while others are designed to be discreet or difficult to disable. Certain devices are simple enough to produce in large quantities, allowing entire groups of cultists to be equipped rapidly. Others are so reliable that they can withstand prolonged immersion in harsh environments like saltwater or chemical pools, making them ideal for use in extreme battlefield conditions. In their covert operations, these agents demonstrate remarkable precision, executing timed detonations to dismantle symbols of oppression and the machinery that sustains it. Their actions often involve slipping through pipes and ducts to reach weapon bunkers, shield generators, or planting explosives to topple idols of the false emperor. Some stalk through shadows around vehicles, wiring fuel supplies or concealed bombs to tank tracks, while others hide behind enemy lines to set traps for high-profile opponents, ensuring chaos on the battlefield. The Rita's saber epitomizes this silent threat, deploying nearly undetectable devices capable of sabotaging entire combat zones. In direct assaults, they rapidly emerge from concealment, affixing demolition charges to enemy machinery, such as the hulls of tanks, then retreat before detonations occur. When not engaged in stealth attacks, the Sanctus lurks in the shadows near the Patriarch's throne, vigilantly watching for potential threats. Its extraordinary olfactory senses detect danger, and its multispectral goggles, stolen from Imperial sources or acquired from fallen enemies, aided in this relentless watchfulness. No adversary escapes the eye of a Sanctus, which follows the psychic trail of fresh victims, leaving an imprint of their presence through bioemission. Its surveillance extends across multiple worlds and even into the vast darkness of the void, working tirelessly to protect its charge. The Sanctus usually operates alone, but it is accompanied by a single vital companion, an offspring emerging from the Genesis pools, serving as its senses in the field, allowing the Sanctus's consciousness to be actively engaged during each deadly mission. Supported by this linker, the Sanctus leverages its lithe physique and grotesquely jointed anatomy to reach the most difficult vantage points or slip into tight, seemingly impregnable locations. Once positioned, death is swift, delivered either by the cutting edge of its biodagger or with carefully aimed shots from the Whisper, a silent sniper rifle. The Locus, a genetically engineered bodyguard, conceals a powerful xenomutated form beneath heavy robes. Patient and vigilant, these guardians stand guard over magi or nexus figures, remaining motionless as statues but fully alert to any threat. Should an assassin strike, the Locus erupts into a ferocious attack, its robes parting to reveal concealed limbs and a slashing tail armed with a barb. Its twin sabers are its most lethal weapons. One swiftly blocks incoming attacks, while the other delivers a clean, decisive strike, decapitating opponents with precision and speed. Once the master of a Locus is secured, the creature's blades are sheathed, and its robes settle back over the lurking nightmare beneath. It is common for Locusts to accompany their gene-sected magi during diplomatic encounters with prominent figures of Imperial society. In such instances, they stand silently behind their master, ready to act, their presence radiating a subtle, watchful menace or fading into the background when diplomacy requires subtlety. If negotiations become tense, the Locust may gently twist the head of the neural trauma rod it carries like a staff. This cruel device emanates a mental disruption field capable of inducing severe migraines or terrifying hallucinations in those untrained in the cult's ways. Through this method, the Locust assists its master in compelling compliance from those who might otherwise resist. Throughout the galaxy, many Imperial worlds have already fallen to gene dealer cults. While some of these worlds were quickly devoured by Tyranid splinter fleets, others became hidden bases for covert infiltration or even overt military campaigns. These cults often take to the stars, spreading their curse in their progenitor's name. It is instinctual for Genestealer cults to ship offspring of pure strains off-world once their nests are established and secure. This acts both as a means of seeding the curse onto new worlds and as a safeguard. If the original cult is discovered and destroyed, its splinter groups can survive and continue the legacy. In addition, planets able to provide adequate tithes may inadvertently contaminate neighboring worlds or, even through warp travel, spread the curse across entire sectors by exporting tainted food, labor crews, medical supplies, or military units. Cults have also been known to seize entire fortress or forge worlds, either secretly or by force, obtaining enough starships to mobilize sizable armies. Through their collective brood mind connection, surviving cult members coalesce into a unified front, quickly producing war engines and weaponry aimed at battlefronts, led by figures such as the Primus, Nexo, and Clovis Marshall. These leaders ensure their forces are ready for combat, though often appearing disorganized compared to the disciplined ranks of the Imperial Guard. These cult armies may be transported via mismatched groups of naval frigates, merchant vessels, and pilgrim barges. Such forces are typically suitable only for a single improvised planetary invasion before they must replenish or shift to guerrilla tactics. Nonetheless, their unwavering single-mindedness and the element of surprise make them capable of achieving interplanetary conquest despite their apparent chaos. Certain cults base their existence on the concept of void travel, leading to a variety of clandestine activities. Records from the archives of the Xenos collection describe isolated groups like pirate bands, smuggling cartels, or remote secessionist enclaves that have, time and again, fallen victim to the influence of the Genestealer curse. These raids and blockade runs serve as efficient channels for delivering pure-strain Genestealers. Indeed, many hardy Imperial settlements have experienced what appeared to be desperate attacks by mutant bandits. However, weeks or months later, these settlements often descend into ominous silence, hinting at a grim transformation. Other cults, more insidious in nature, operate under the guise of legitimacy. They often attach themselves to the personal space fleets of rogue traders, chartered explorers, and freelancers operating on the fringes of Imperial space. These vessels may represent the only point of contact between outlying Imperial worlds and the broader human civilization. Over the years, the Death Watch have intensified their efforts to track such groups, suspecting that many are infiltrated by Genestealers. In recent times, evidence has emerged of Genestealer cults instigating rebellions from within the engines of Imperial Navy warships, hidden deep within the ship's labyrinthine interior. Despite the formidable security measures designed to guard these vessels, cunning or fortunate broodkin can still infiltrate them. Often they slip aboard disguised within hollowed-out munitions or concealed inside shipping containers destined for remote holds. When warships seek refuge at void stations or orbital docks, places where they can repair and replenish, they are vulnerable to infiltration. This allows pure-strain Genestealers to board undetected, spreading infection beneath the radar. Hard-pressed warships and colonies often fall victim to this covert threat as Genestealer broodkin secretly infiltrate entire hive slumps or frontier outposts in their haste to recover lost personnel. These contaminated crews, unaware of their infection, unwittingly become agents of chaos, igniting violent uprisings aboard vessels. Such rebellions frequently erupt from the lower decks, with infected crew members turning against their comrades, sometimes even attacking the bridge in chaos. Despite rigorous security and counter-infection measures, many of these space-borne insurrections end in failure, with only one vessel or a small group being compromised before being destroyed by loyal forces. Nonetheless, the most cunning and resilient cults have achieved astonishing success, capturing entire Imperial warships or even fleets. Groups like the Star Coil cult, the cult of the Shadowed Tendril, and the notorious Goder Apostles have seized legitimate Navy assets, turning them into instruments of havoc. These infected vessels often operate deep within sectors, wreaking destruction while the Imperial defenses are stretched thin, preparing for the relentless onslaught of the Tyranid's high fleets.